Hi everyone. Well, good morning. Hello and welcome to the Committee for Sydney's Sydney Summit for 2023. It's great to see all of you here. Great to see people out early on a Monday morning. I wasn't sure Monday morning was still a thing, but it is, and you're here, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much for being here. We have a great morning planned for you this morning, and I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about that shortly. But what I wanted to say right now is our aim for today is to get everybody back into the room so that they can pick up the conversations that they were having at the end of last year, so that we can spend time together thinking about what are going to be the big issues for our city in the year ahead, and we can come away with a bit of a sense of what we want to focus on and work on during that year ahead. Thinking about big issues for our city in the year ahead, one of the big issues for us is going to be a big issue for our nation. It's the question of what kind of relationship we have with our country's First Nations. And with that in mind, I asked my friend Michael McDaniel if he would begin the day by speaking with us about that issue. Many of you will know Michael or know of Michael. He is a Wiradjuri man with a distinguished career in education and also in the arts and cultural sector. He has, in past years, been the Indigenous Pro Vice-Chancellor at UTS, the chair of the Bangarra Dance Theatre. He is now a Professor of Indigenous Education at UTS, and he's very kindly agreed to speak with us today. So please welcome Professor Michael McDaniel.
Good morning, everyone. Michael, thank you for that generous welcome, and can I also just start by paying my respects and acknowledge the Premier of New South Wales, Dominic Perrottet, who's joining us today, and also the New South Wales Shadow Minister for Planning and Public Spaces, Paul Scully. Just by way of introduction, apart from my name, Michael McDaniel, fine Irish name, I'm a Wiradjuri man from central New South Wales, from a place called Forbes, if anyone's heard of it, along the Lachlan. My clan is the Kalari clan, the Kalari being the Lachlan River, my clan being Kalari Mangalan. My connection to Sydney, I've lived in Sydney for most of my life, and on my non-Aboriginal side of the family, my connection to Sydney goes back to 1790 with the Second Fleet. So I'm very much connected to this part of the world, as we are all connected in some way or other. It's an honour to speak to you today. Michael also asked me to commence by acknowledging the traditional owners. And in doing that, I'd just like to recognise how beautiful it is that the acknowledgement of traditional owners has become, within our lifetime, a very Australian practice. It's made us more Australian, dare I say. It's certainly made New Zealanders feel more comfortable when they attend our gatherings. And it lifts the heart and spirit of my people when we hear those kind words. Of course, I'm giving an acknowledgement as a Wiradjuri man. I'm not a traditional owner of this country, but I have the privilege of being on this country, and I reflect on that privilege regularly. The wealth of this place, generated from the soil itself, as a fundamental. It gives me health and life and supports the prosperity of my family and my community. Acknowledgement of traditional owners, I'd also just like to say, is more than just a few quick words, the intention of it. The intention of it is that it's an act of connection. It's a deep cultural act of connection to country and to people, and that's our starting point in relation to any decision making as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And in Wiradjuri, in our own language, we would say it's an act of yinjamara. That word yinjamara, it is a word in Wiradjuri, but it's also a philosophy. As a word, it means honour and respect. As a philosophy in Wiradjuri culture, we say it's the fundamental understanding of a well-developed human being. Yinjamara requires a life lived of honour and respect. And we say it also requires a life of graciousness, of kindness, of generosity, and of thoughtfulness, that we think in relation to all of our activities, all our words, all our actions, knowing that they go into the world and that they have an impact on every living and non-living thing. So acknowledgement of traditional owners is an act of yinjamara. So with that, and partly in my own language, I would like to ngona yinjamara, mangalang mormangina, gargal mangalang, boyor mangalang, bo ngona yinjamara bo muji gangarang, ina ngormang, yani bo daindu. I yinjamara, I give honour and respect to the traditional owners of this place, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and of their elders past and present. As you'll note, I'm giving an extended acknowledgement. And where that came from, Michael and I are friends from many years. We're having a coffee. And I'm sure, as you have done with family and friends, we started talking about the forthcoming referendum. And we talked about the Uluru Statement and the various elements of it, voice, truth, treaty. We speculated on the outcome, as I'm sure you have, the drivers for various parts of society, what this means for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, what it means for the nation, what elements of fear might be involved in it, and what elements of aspiration might be involved in that. And in that conversation, I started to reflect from a cultural perspective. And I said, I hope people understand it as an extension of kinship. I don't know if you're familiar with kinship in Aboriginal culture, but for our people, kinship is the fundamental building block of society. It determines how we interact with each other. So, for example, in our traditional society, if I call Michael, firstly, we believe that all human beings are our near relatives, and that there can't be a human being, whether we've met them or not, that's not a close relative. And the reason why we have to identify people as relatives and give them kinship names is to understand what our responsibilities are for them. Because we're not a rights-based society. Traditionally, we didn't have a concept of rights. We only had responsibilities. And my job in life is to find out what my responsibility would be to each person in this room, which makes for a good society. I'd very much like everyone in this room looking after me. I need it, right? So the way it would work is I'd call Michael my brother in order to understand what my responsibilities are. And if I call him a brother, I have all the responsibilities to him of a brother. But that immediately creates a cascading set of relationships, because his mother becomes my mother. And I have all the responsibilities towards Michael's mother, as I do my own. His children become my children, his brothers and sisters become my brothers and sisters. And so we have this rippling spider's web of responsibility. So that's the basis of our society, kinship. It was our vision for our relationship right from the very beginning. You'll notice in history books we didn't drive everyone into the sea. We actually started calling people by kinship terms. And some of you will be aware that Bennelong called our first governor, Arthur Phillip, uncle. Well, I hope now, if you read that again, you'll understand what it was that Bennelong was trying to do. He was trying to trigger that automatic cascading of relationship. And wouldn't that have been wonderful if that had happened? And wouldn't that have facilitated the amenity and kindness that Phillip was under instructions to exercise towards Aboriginal people? So in our discussion in relation to the referendum and the voice, I said to Michael, I hope in the midst of all of this that people have the opportunity to understand that this is part of an unbroken vision for our society. That despite the events of history, despite violence, trauma, marginalisation, sometimes vilification, removal of children, removal of resources, removal of land, that my people have never ceased to extend kinship. So I'd ask you to reflect on that and perhaps even weave that into your conversations, whatever your position might be. And I also hope that perhaps through the day and beyond today, that concept, that understanding of the value of not only Yinjamara in our actions and our thoughts, but our need for kinship with each other permeates our thinking, not only in terms of our responsibilities as Australians, for our fellow citizens in New South Wales, but as we plan and think about our city and our various communities. So thank you very much for letting me take some of your time, and I look forward to connecting to you in as many ways as possible. So thank you all.
Michael, thank you very much. Every time I hear you speak, I'm struck by your wisdom, your clarity, and the generosity of your message. So thank you for that. And I will join you in acknowledging the traditional owners of this part of Sydney and paying respect to their elders, past and present.